magic in the air. Aye, 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 בכל הגוף בוער. Aye, aye, aye. Feel the magic in the air.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another World Cup group preview. Only two left. Today we're talking Group G. We've done A through F. I think all of them are posted. I might need to go back and recheck that. But today is Group G. It is Brazil's group, the favorite of this year's tournament, along with Switzerland, Cameroon, and Serbia. This group it's a good group. It's solid. They've got some big names, obviously, with Brazil, the 5-time champions, Serbia with an attacking duo up top who's hurt right now. Both of them are hurt. However, they're lethal if they do end up getting to play in Qatar. Switzerland, who, with Granit Xhaka, is he on Switzerland? He is, isn't he? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah. The Cody Gakpo thing it's really thrown me for a loop. Yeah, now I'm like
it's like haunting you just in the back of your mind
now. Every player. And then you got Cameroon, an AFCON team. What are your initial thoughts on this group, Dylan? I feel like that's the first question we always ask each other. Initial thoughts: can Brazil get number 6? Will Neymar finally lift that trophy? For me, are the two things that stand out in this group.
For me in this group, it's how much can Serbia really challenge Brazil, if at all. I think this is another one that feels pretty chalk. I think it's going to be a really fun group. It's a group I'm really excited to watch, but I'd really be surprised if either Brazil or Serbia didn't advance. With that being said, one of my favorite things when we look at these groups is to look at what the path will look like for the teams after the group. And that's where I think this group is at a real advantage. I think you can make a legitimate argument that no matter which of those two finishes first or second, they would likely be favored in a match against their opponents in the round of 16. They match up with our final group, which we haven't talked about at all yet together, but that would be Group H. So you'd be talking about Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, South Korea, which is a very solid group. But I think I would take Brazil or Serbia over honestly, either of those 4 teams in a single game matchup. Obviously, like you said, there's some injury concerns around Serbia's front line, but with a fully healthy Vlahovic and Mitrovic, it's a Serbian team. I know. I am glad that the U.S. is very unlikely to face until so far down the line in the tournament.
Yeah,
we'll both be out by then.
Most likely. I think Brazil has. I'm pretty sure that I read that they've taken part in every single World Cup. They're the only nation to do so. And they finished in the top of their group in the first round of every World Cup since 1982. So Brazil it's almost the lock to win this group. I think Opta Analysts, which does a lot of these simulations, they have Brazil at a 67.6% chance to win this group, which I was kind of surprised by. I thought it'd be at least in the 70s. And then Switzerland with a 15.2% chance to come in first, Serbia with a 12.5. And then Switzerland actually has a better chance of finishing second than Serbia does, 33.7 and 30.3. Obviously, I don't know what goes into all this data. It's who knows, but I think that 2 and 3 is a little bit closer than what you just mentioned. I think, especially with the form that Granit Xhaka is on, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then if Serbia doesn't have those guys healthy up top, obviously it's a completely different story. So, let's go ahead and talk about Switzerland to start off. So Switzer back in the World Cup, their 12th World Cup. I believe they were in the same qualifying group as Italy, who did not make the World Cup. They outperformed the European champions, and they relegated them to the playoffs, where Italy obviously eventually lost. Switzerland, I mean, they're led this year, it seems like, by Granit Xhaka, who's just having an incredible year in the Premier League for Arsenal. A midfielder who's really taken the league by the balls this year so far, honestly. He's got 12 goals and 104 international caps. I think he's their captain. But I think it starts with him. And I'm sure Switzerland is thrilled to have him be in the form that he's on.
Yeah, for me, he's had a very nice season so far this year for Arsenal. Obviously, he's kind of rebounded after a rocky start at Arsenal, and he's played really well. But when you're looking at, my team is led by, I know it's more than just one or two players, but my team can be led by Mitrovic or Xhaka. I'm probably taking Mitrovic. If it can be Vlahovic or Xhaka, more of an argument. I think just because of the form we've seen Vlahovic on. But for me, my lack in faith in Switzerland comes down to I have question marks around Xhaka still, and maybe that's not fair. And as a guy who has been I don't want to say an Arsenal supporter because they're certainly not my team, but somebody who has watched a lot of Arsenal and has kind of been pulling for Arsenal because I do think they're due, and I would like to see somebody else compete with City. He's just not a guy I would want to be building my national team around. He does play with a lot of passion. He does appear to be a fairly good leader. But as far as a player that can put a team on his back and win a game, he's really not that guy for me, where I think there are a lot better candidates for a position like that elsewhere in this group. So Switzerland had a great qualifying campaign. They've played really well in 2022, but it's just a team that I just don't see the firepower there to compete on the world stage like you do with the other two teams that are fighting for that qualification.
Yeah, I think Switzerland, I just read here that they were actually in the same group with Brazil in 2018, so it's kind of deja vu for them. They're thinking, man, what do we have to do to not be in a group with these guys? I think, honestly, I don't know a whole lot about Switzerland, the history, how they play. But I think from what I'm kind of reading here, they've relied on their back line a lot to really anchor their teams and just win game kind of slugfests in like the sense of just really physical games. And that's not really going to work super well in this group. You're going to have to score a lot. And you're not, a good defense. You would have to have like a world-class back line to stop some of the teams in this group. So just having the reputation of your back line being the backbone of your team and it not being like a France or a Netherlands type of back line, it's not really most likely going to get you through in this group in my mind.
Right. I mean, I am a massive, obviously, Fabian Schär supporter, and I think he's been phenomenal for Newcastle, and he'll be starting at the center of that back line. And I think he's a very formidable defender. But as you said, I don't think he's quite on the level of leading a center back pairing against the likes of Mitrovic, Vlahovic, Neymar, Vinicius. Like he's just not at that echelon. And as great as he's played in the Premier League this year, he is surrounded by Sven Botman, Kieran Trippier, Dan Burn. Like it is a phenomenal backline as a whole, where he's not really asked to be the anchor because there are other players on that backline that can act as that anchor. So well, I've been very impressed and very pleased and very happy with his performance this year for Newcastle. It's just not up to a level where I think he'll really be able to be the anchor against these two high-powered offenses, really.
I agree. I would agree. Sorry, I was just plugging my Ethernet cord in so that we don't lose me mid-recording again.
I will say for me, we both kind of said the biggest thing here is their likely inability to score and the need for them to likely score. I think Shaqiri is obviously the first name that comes to mind for me when we're talking about Switzerland, but this is a guy who is certainly past his prime. I want to say he's probably 32, 33, just made a move to the MLS. I do really like Noah Okafor at Salzburg. I think he's certainly a guy that they will be able to get some production out of. But if you're talking about leaning on a 22-year-old striker from shoot, I always mix them up. Is he Salzburg or Leipzig? Either way, playing at Salzburg or playing at Leipzig, it's just not quite that, again, that same competition level where he's likely ready to put a team on his back from an offensive perspective. And with the relative lack of scoring prowess on this team, he may be asked to do a little bit more than he's ready to do.
I hope y'all learned a lot about Switzerland through that conversation. Let's move on to Cameroon. Cameroon, one of those AFCON teams that I feel like there's so many good teams in AFCON that like could make the World Cup every year. And you've got teams like the Ivory Coast who miss out, Egypt who's missing out this year, but Cameroon is one of those teams that are in it. Cameroon football is embarking on a new era. Samuel Eto'o. Eto'o, how do you say his name again? Eto'o? Eto'o. Just Samuel Eto'o. Sorry, he was a little bit before my soccer watching time.
When I mean, when he was on Inter, and I was just like, that was kind of me being introduced to international soccer. That's what I call it. But
I think that's right.
I also wasn't watching Italian broadcasts or like European broadcasts where they actually would know how to pronounce. But that's what I've always gone with. Nobody's corrected me yet.
I think you're right. Then we'll go with that. He just took over as their president of the Cameroonian Football Association. So their biggest name in the country's sporting history is taking over that program. And he really wants to get them to the top of AFCON. So Cameroon qualified by just a wafer thin margin in the playoff versus Algeria. And I don't know a whole lot about them. Dylan, what do you have? Do you have anything on this team? Do you know how they play, or do you have some key names for us in this team? Obviously, I know you got Onana at the back, their goalkeeper from Inter Milan, but I don't know a whole lot else about him.
Onana and I will never ever say his name right. The older forward for Bayern, Choupo-Moting. I absolutely butchered that. But those are really the names that initially kind of stick out to me as far as their ability or how they play together. They are very focused on short passing, play through the midfield, 4-3-3 kind of. What you see is what you get kind of play style. And I think that's a reason that they are going to be fairly easy for these very much more skilled sides to match up with them however they see fit. Unfortunately, I just don't see enough in the side for Cameroon to compete. They don't come at you super creatively. They don't come at you super high pressing or anything out of the ordinary that could possibly throw a team off from what the couple of AFCON games I've seen them play and the bit of reading I've done on them. It just feels like there isn't quite enough there to disrupt in my opinion, top two, but really it's a pretty clear top three as a whole in this group. So they're not a team I expect to see much from, to be bluntly honest.
Yeah, I think they're still a team that, or a nation, I guess, that's kind of on the come up. You know, we talked about the U.S. a couple weeks ago and how their golden generation is kind of starting to come up. Cameroon's got some older guys, but I think they've also got some U20 guys that are working their way up. So this is still kind of a transition year for them with a new coach, also, and not a new coach. I think he's new as of the last year and a half or so. He wasn't with them last World Cup cycle. I think just making the World Cup this year is a huge accomplishment for Cameroon. I think if you had told them you're going to make the World Cup, you're not making it out of the group, they would obviously accept that with knowing the position that they're in and really looking for that next World Cup cycle to be the one that they go for the knockout stages on.
Yeah, they didn't qualify in 2018, but I think they qualified for the 3 or 4 before that. So they are a African nation that is pretty rich in international football history. They tend to not make it out of the group. I don't think they've made it out of the group in my lifetime that at least like my conscious soccer watching lifetime. Yeah. But they are certainly a team that does. I mean, AFCON is not necessarily easy to qualify out of. And they do manage to qualify. So while I'm saying they're not a team I expect much from, I don't want to do them a disservice and make them sound like they aren't a legitimate football nation. Like, I'm not calling them Qatar, where I'm saying this is brand new and nothing.
This is their 8th World Cup. It's the most of any African countries, actually. So
it's just not that, like you said, it's kind of not in their rotation right now. I think this was possibly a little bit ahead of schedule to qualify. They were able to qualify narrowly, and I think this is going to be more for building for the future and kind of getting through that transition.
Yep. Team 3 is Serbia, which I think if you did you have anything else on Cameroon? Are you laughing at me for moving on? Okay.
No, not at all. We're good.
Serbia, kind of a country that I, a year and a half ago would not have guessed would be an elite soccer country, to be honest with you. I very much enjoyed getting to watch Alexander Mitrovic in the Premier League this year after he bagged like 50 goals in the championship last year or something like that. They have 2 star strikers up top. I believe that team starts up top with those 2 guys, in Dusan Vlahovic and Alexander Mitrovic. Without even looking, I'm assuming they play some sort of like 4-4-2 because you have to have both those guys on the field at once. Have you watched much Serbia? Do you know much about them? I know the kind of consensus is this is their golden generation. Like, they've never had this much firepower and this much talent, and they can legitimately make a top 16 run for sure.
Yeah, I think this is it's not a Serbia team I watched a lot of throughout European qualifying or in Euros, but it's a team that
they actually didn't make the Euros, which is crazy.
More to the point.
Yeah.
Even more to the point. At that time, Mitrovic was, maybe that's why he had such a phenomenal year last year, because he didn't go play in Euros and everybody else did. But that aside, it's a side I haven't honestly watched a lot of. But when I've watched a lot of many of their key players, so I do feel like I have a pretty good idea about what they have to offer. It obviously starts with Vlahovic, the multi-millions of dollar man at Juventus. He has struggled a little bit this year. As of late, started to turn around, but it was kind of a slow start for him at Juventus. But last year at Fiorentina, he was absolutely class. Like, I was tuning in to watch Fiorentina games on a Friday just to watch him. And while I do watch more Serie A than probably your average American soccer fan, it's not like my league of choice, obviously. So me setting aside time to watch Fiorentina just tells you how special he is. His ability to create and score from any part in that final third is pretty remarkable. And then obviously Mitrovic as well, lots of goal scoring prowess. We saw what he did last year in the championship, and he's actually been able to transfer it to the Premier League for the first time in his career, really, where he's seen Premier League success. So I think some of those questions that we had, really everybody had about him, not to discount his year last year, but I think he was able to answer those. So if he's able to perform on the Premier League stage, I see every reason he should be able to do the same on the world stage.
Serbia, I didn't realize how loaded they were.
Yeah.
They've also got
I was like halfway
Savic.
through, if halfway through. Yeah.
I forgot that Sergej Milinkovic-Savic was Serbian. They've also got Dusan Tadic, who's older, and then Kostic as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's why this is a team that it surprises me, just purely off name and firepower alone, that the sports books, the odds calculator, percent calculator thing you were referencing, that everybody has Switzerland above them. Like, maybe it's just too hype boy of me, and I watch too much Champions League, too much EPL, and not enough international football right now. Maybe I'm not watching enough Serbian friendlies to get a good gauge on how they play as a team. But I look at this team and I'm like, what do you mean they're picked third to advance from the group? Like, I don't understand it, because there is so much firepower, like you said. And the exact opposite on Switzerland. There's like no real excitement on that team for me. It's a very solid team. It's a very well-rounded team, but there's no excitement. Maybe Serbia has too much excitement and they can't play together. Again, I haven't watched enough of them to know, but I look at this roster and I get pretty excited to watch them.
I'm looking at some of their formations and setups and heat maps from some friendlies that they've played. And this team is just all offense and all vibes. It looks like they run like a 3-4-2-1, whole lot of guys up top. And it's not that Conte 3-man defense with the, two outside defending midfielders, which are wing backs. It's a run and gun type of offense, which should be fun to watch. I mean, they seem like appointment television to me. That Brazil-Serbia match is
I was just about to look up
one.
what the over-under on that game was, because it's got to be 3.5, and you don't see 3.5 very often, especially in international matchups. But like, there's no way we're not expecting a minimum of 3 goals in that game.
Yeah.
Let me see what it is really quick. Oh my
Serbia
God!
Serbia is also one of those countries where it's kind of like Croatia with a lot of sitches at the end. This is a lot of vitches at the end.
Looking at their roster, though, one big concern I would have is the lack of legitimate, like, high-end defenders, and I think that's probably part of why they play a play style the way they do. It's like, we can't afford to play a 1-goal game. We can't afford to sit back on the back foot and look to counter. Like, we got to take it to teams in every possible way, because if you let Brazil possess the ball for more than 30 seconds in the final third against this back line, you're probably going to see a goal given up. So I get the question marks around them. There's just so much firepower up front. Again, maybe too much Champions League. Maybe I play too much Ultimate Team, and I'm not watching enough international football. But this team's super exciting to watch, I think.
They are. Last kind of fun fact on Serbia is, they used to be part of Yugoslavia, who's had their fair share of success in the FIFA World Cup. But as an independent country, Serbia's never made it past the group stage, and I feel pretty confident that country is going to get their first taste of knockout rounds in the World Cup this year. So to recap, Serbia, appointment television, they're going to score. Mitrovic is kind of like that bully in the box. He's a bully of a striker, and then Vlahovic is kind of more of a poacher finisher, like a Ibrahimovic type. I'm not saying he's Zlatan Ibrahimovic, just style of play wise. And then they've got Milinkovic-Savic, he's on form. He's a wonderful creator, and I think Mitrovic, he plays for Fulham, who's a good team, but he hasn't had Milinkovic-Savic feeding him the ball this year like he will in the World Cup. So I'm really excited to watch this team again. Let's move on to the favorites. FIFA's number 1 rated team, the favorites to win this World Cup. They are winless since 2002 as far as titles go. They've obviously won games in the World Cup.
What a way to word that. That was absolutely phenomenal. 10 out of 10.
That was like gymnastics. I realized halfway through that sentence that I kind of messed up, so I needed to put that qualifier at the end. Brazil wins games in every World Cup. They haven't won a title since 2002, which 20 years is a pretty long time for them. The country with 5 World Cup titles. So a lot of countries are just happy to make 5 World Cups in their history. Right. Brazil's won 5 of them. So I think we'll probably spend about 10 minutes on Brazil more than any other team. Obviously, this is a Brazil team that, like most of the other huge countries, they've got their fair share of their 33 through 35-year-old, 36-year-old veterans, and then they've got their 23 and under players. And it feels like the last go around for that generation that everybody thought was going to bring Brazil a World Cup. The Thiago Silva, the Neymars, they haven't gotten it done thus far. But then you've also got the Brunos of the world and Vinny Juniors of the world. They're younger guys also who are going to be that next golden generation that Brazil just always seems to have. So a really good mix of talent this year. The one thing to really note is what Brazil's known for is their just outstanding fullbacks, especially on the right side. Fullbacks that are prolific offensively, world class, go down in the history books. They're kind of missing that this year, which is weird to see on a Brazil team, but they're not going to struggle to score, regardless of who's bringing the ball down that right flank. So, Dylan, take us away. Your thoughts on Brazil?
So the the first thing that always trips me up with Brazil. And I am saying this hoping it's not embarrassing, really hoping everybody that's listening agrees. I refuse to believe Neymar and Casemiro are the same age. Like in my head, Neymar's like 4 or 5 years younger than
Yeah,
like
Neymar's like
35.
27 in my head.
Yeah. Casemiro's like 24, 25, or 34, 35, and Neymar's like 28 in my head,
Yeah.
and they're both 30. So, like, whenever I hear them put together on, like, they're the generation together, I'm like, wait, oh, no, they are. But Neymar, I think partially just the way they both play, I mean, is part of it. I mean, Neymar's still so electric and flashy and fun to watch, and Casemiro plays like a 36-year-old defensive midfielder, not in a bad way, because if you're 36 still playing international soccer, you're doing something right. But like just their play styles is probably what leads me down that road. But Brazil as a whole, I do think obviously everybody's been talking about and will talk about their back line. Is it up to snuff, essentially? Silva's been asked to do quite a bit this year already, and he actually is much older than Neymar. So
yeah, he's like 38, 39.
Yeah, I was going to say 36, but he could be even older than that. But he's going to be asked to do a lot. They do have
37. We'll split the middle.
They do have Militao in that famed right back position for them. I don't think that's necessarily his best position, but I kind of anticipate he will play that right back in the World Cup, and he is a very solid player, plays at Real. So to say they don't have anything, like they do have something. It's just not what we're used to from Brazil.
He plays center back for Real Madrid, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, right. And but I think that's who's going to get asked to play right back. Yeah. He's like a center back, can play defensive mid. Like I kind of expect to see him in that right back position.
Yeah.
He's pretty versatile. But like you're saying, like I think he's a phenomenal player. It's just not normally that right back we see from Brazil.
Right.
So I do think that back line has some questions, but then everything outside that back line, from Casemiro to Bruno to Neymar to Vinny Jr. to
Richarlison,
Rafinha, Richarlison to Jesus, it's ridiculous how talented they are in front of that back line. And from a group preview perspective, I think that makes any other conversations irrelevant that we have. Like, they are winning this group. I don't think there's any way they don't win this group. With that being said, if they were to not win this group, I touched on this at the beginning, they would get to match up with Group H. So even if somehow Serbia or Switzerland get ahead of them, like pulling off draws, Brazil has some upset loss, whatever the case may be, I don't think anything really they can do in this group hinders their chance to make a legitimate run at the trophy. And I think that'll allow Brazil to kind of approach the group stage a little bit uniquely. Obviously, their first goal will be to win the group, but knowing that there isn't that 100% pressure that, yes, even if we somehow finish second in the group, if everything we did in the group readies us to make a run, we can still make that run, and everybody will forget that we took second. I think this is just a team with so much depth and so much talent and so much that they have at their disposal, whether it's strategy or players, that they'll do what they want in the group.
Yeah, I think they've got 2 11s that can make the semifinals in this World Cup, and that includes goalkeepers, which we haven't even talked about, with Allison and Ederson in goal. So I think, did we mention Marquinhos? Who they've also got him on the back line. Thiago Silva, Marquinhos.
Yeah. But he's another guy that's like he's very solid. I like him, but he's not like exciting for me. I think maybe that's because he gets overshadowed a little bit at his club and on the national team. Maybe he's a guy where if I only was watching him for 20, 25 minutes of a match just to really see what he does, I may feel differently about him. But he just doesn't excite me because he's on such loaded teams. There's so much other things to watch and get excited about that he's just kind of there for me. And that's probably not a fair assessment, but that's my honest, like, only semi-educated assessment.
Yeah, I think with Brazil, it's, not the question of do they have enough here, do they have enough there. It's the who's going to be picked. Who's going to be picked to start these games? How are they going to play? Where's Neymar going to play? Is he going to play on the wing, or will they stick him up top to get, those three, the Vinny Jr., either Rafinha or Rodrigo on that right wing? Will they stick Neymar up top? It's, Paqueta and will probably be that number 10, but Neymar can also play that. So how do you piece this team together game by game to maximize the just stupid amount of talent that they have? There's only 3 players left over from that 2014 team that lost in embarrassing fashion in their home country. So hopefully those memories are erased from, I believe it's Silva, Dani Alves, who's on the squad.
I didn't even realize Dani Alves
speaking of that position. Yeah, he's I think he's
was he like is he 40?
Mexican league now?
40 yet?
He's 39 with Pumas, and his market value is $1 million.
Love it. Those are
so.
In his defense, if you're going to play somewhere at 40, play somewhere with some of the coolest jerseys. A giant Puma head was my go-to on Ultimate Team for the longest time until it was like everybody's go-to on Ultimate Team.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he could come up to the MLS and settle down in America if he wanted to. FC Dallas would welcome him. I mean, I think my last thought on Brazil really is most soccer fans clearly know Vinicius Jr. Like, he scored the Champions League winning goal. However, we've discussed, a couple times previously, those World Cup fans in America that just know the players that play well at the World Cup and have that 5 minutes of fame with the American media. I think that's going to be Vinny Jr. in this World Cup. Neymar and Vinicius Jr. I think will be the 2 guys that ultimately maybe lead Brazil to glory. So it's an exciting team.
So right now you have to pick Brazil, France, or the field. Who are you taking?
Brazil and France. I think it didn't.
No, Brazil or France. Not Brazil and France. Because then I feel like I would take Brazil and France. Like,
so so I have three options right now.
Yeah. Do you take the field?
Yeah, I take the field.
I feel like you're a field guy.
Yeah.
I'm a Brazil guy right now. Like,
I'm an Argentina guy, so I'll take the field.
Outside of Argentina, I don't really see another team in the field that can make a legitimate run, but that's kind of why I ask it, because of the 3, they're probably the lesser of the 3 between France, Brazil, but then you get the caveat of the rest of the field. But for me, like, I think I would take Brazil still. Like, there are questions at their back line, but they have 2 of the 5 best goalkeepers in the world, and they have probably the best midfield and attack I can think of in the last, like, I would take
since Spain 2010 probably.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would take this over 2014. I would take it over 2018. Like, it's one of the best midfield and attacking presences I've ever seen. So I'm super excited to see them. I don't know if it's because I'm biased, because we pretend we're like pseudo Brazil fans now at Newcastle because we have 2 Brazilians and only one even made the national team, but we're still super Brazilian.
Who's the second?
Joelinton. And there was a lot of people that thought he should have made it. I totally get why he didn't. Like, he doesn't fit. Like, he's a great Premier League player. He doesn't fit anything Brazil would ever try and do on a national team. But I'm really excited to see this Brazil team. I'm going to carve out time to watch their game live in full, regardless. Like, it will be truly appointment TV. It'll be this in the US where I'm doing everything I can to make sure I'm watching that game in full, no interruptions, not on replay, because I do think this is that special of a Brazil team this go around.
Yeah, and when we say they have questions on their back line, it's still like a top 6 back line in the world. Like, it's not, it's
like, I
it's
love Tim Ream, but like, Tim Ream's not starting at center back. And I'm a huge Tim.
No, he's not even. He's not probably not making the plane. And I think to finish it off, will Neymar find his World Cup glory? And if he does, I think he's got an express lane to the Ballon d'Or for next year. Obvious. I think that's pretty obvious if you've followed him and what he's done at PSG this year, and then couple that with a World Cup title. I think he will be the front runner moving forward. So yeah, it's a decent group, obviously led by Brazil. So the other teams are going to get overshadowed. But watch Serbia, like we said. I mean, that's going to be.
I'm pumped to watch Serbia.
Yeah.
And take that over 2.5, please. Everybody listening, it's at -130. They're both going to score. Who do they each play first? Who plays who first? Brazil. I think Brazil plays Cameroon first. Maybe I could be wrong.
Brazil and Serbia, November 24th, first game.
Oh, it is the first game. That's too bad. I was thinking you could get a better number right now than you would later, but I would still take the over 2.5, -130. That might be. I did Germany to win the group as like my excited betting pick a couple weeks ago. This might be like my lock of the tournament though. Like there's no way they don't score at least 3 goals between the two of them in that game. Like there's just no way. Brazil could do it on their own against anybody in this tournament. Brazil could put up 3 on their own.
Yeah.
And then you add the attacking on Serbia. I think it's going to be an electric group. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for this group more than I am probably half the groups, honestly.
Yeah, it might not be the deepest group in the world, but those top 2 teams that we talked about are pretty special. Any final thoughts on this one?
No.
No.
I expect Brazil to win it all. I think anything short of that is a disappointment.
Yeah, agreed. Usually is for Brazil. They're just that good. That has been the Group G preview. One left, Group H. So we appreciate you guys listening as always. I didn't feel prepared for this one at all, but hey, we spitballed it and we're just getting them through right now. So we hope you learned a little bit of something about someone. Again, appreciate you guys listening. Y'all have a great night. Make sure to like or day. I don't know when you're watching this. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, follow, and whatever else you do on social media. Peace.